Hello and welcome to Your Place, a video magazine for informative chats with automotive retailing newsmakers. I'm Dennis McGinn, founder and chief executive for vehicle reconditioning and communications company RapidRecon. And 3 times a month, we visit guests at their place of business to engage in conversations about news shaping the car business. Today, we're talking about risk management, the importance of clearing the used cars you buy of the former person's personal data. My guest today is Andrea Amico, founder and CEO of risk management company Privacy4Cars. Their patented method offers consumers sensible protection for dealers, compliance to vehicles' data security and privacy regulations. Very interesting area, and with that, let's get with it. So, Andrea, can you tell us what's going on? What do you see going on in this area?
Hi, Dennis, and thank you for having me. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody. So at Privacy4Cars, we started 7 years ago thinking about cars collect a lot of data. There's a lot of great uses for the data, but what about the security and privacy of the data? And turned out nobody was really thinking about that. And that's the niche we carved out for ourselves. And since the last couple of years when privacy regulations started to pass, first in California and then really across the board, across the United States, we have become the de facto standard solution for all the auto auctions. We are at more than 400 locations right now across the United States and Canada. We're currently expanding into Europe and other markets. And we are just recently starting to get into the dealership market where we see a lot of needs for it, frankly.
Well, I relate to this a lot, as I know a lot of your customers do, which is go out and rent cars and or buy cars or trade cars, and you're busy. You don't even think about it. I mean, and I've gotten to where when I do rent a car now, I look and see, because everybody wants hands free, okay, and I'll see everybody that didn't, and the first thing I'll do is start deleting them because I'm worried. But how does that actually work? I mean, one of the things that bothers me is you say the car usually says, can we access your address book? What are the different kinds of personal information that are usually left behind?
That is such a great question, Dennis. And first of all, it changes car by car. So, I'm going to try to generalize, but we really shouldn't generalize too much. But what people don't realize is that when you sync your phone over Bluetooth, or say you plug your phone into the USB port because you want to listen to your music or use Apple CarPlay or, those kind of services, what people don't realize is that there's a lot of data that moves from your phone into the car. This is not just the contacts. It's your obvious stuff that people probably think about is, yes, the contacts, the call logs, right? Who you called and who you received calls, but also the entire text message database. And, when you think about people, do you want your text messages to be seen by other people? People get really, really nervous about that, and they probably should. But there's a lot of other stuff, right? There's identifiers from the phone that make it easy to re-identify people, which is a key important fact because of compliance. A lot of requirements come when you can re-identify people. So it's very easy to re-identify people if you plug your phone into your car. And then there's a lot of other stuff. Today we find biometrics, payment information. We've seen browsing histories, your Twitter and then your Facebook logins may be in there. The photos you've taken with your phone, there's a record of that. The files you have downloaded from your email into your phone, there's a record of that. There's a lot of stuff in cars that people really don't realize.
Between the let's say the rental companies, for instance, I mean, what's their exposure at this point through whatever legal systems there are? And does it depend on the state? Is it federal? What are their compliance requirements that they're required to deal with?
That's another great question. So first of all the 4 major car rental companies have already been sued on this issue, even before California Consumer Privacy Act passed. In fact, just last week, so the first 2 already have settled Sixth and Hertz have settled. Hertz out of the bankruptcy court. So imagine this, right? The bankruptcy judge decided that they should award hundreds of thousands of dollars to a consumer that sued them ahead of people that were being washed out of the bankruptcy process, right? So that tells you how seriously the courts take this issue to heart. And just last week, there was a decision on the Avis budget case where the judge agreed with the plaintiff attorneys that not only there is data that is sensible and dangerous for consumers, that's the words of the judge, not mine, but they are also saying that this was unfair and deceptive because people don't realize that they're leaving this data behind. And to make it worse, they're saying it's even an anti-competitive practice. In other words, the judge is saying if people had known that their data was left behind and it was left available to other people, they would have not paid the same amount of money. And so the difference between what was actually paid by consumer and what a reasonable consumer would have paid if they had known that the data was exposed is the liability. Now, take that number. I don't know what the number will be, right? Because probably right now, this is where settlement discussions will start. But whatever the number is, then you multiply for the millions of times that vehicles are rented. This number will become a very large number very quickly.
Are there any information out there that this information is actually getting used? That somehow it's getting into the hands of either the marketing people, somehow it's being shared and people are being approached, or I mean, is there any evidence of that?
Yeah, so there's actually two different types of uses, right? So one is the marketing type of use, right? So if you were to read the privacy policy of the car you drive, which I know nobody does, but we do, right? But you would read that, there's a number of pieces of information your car collects that will be used for improving the product, for safety purposes, for marketing purposes, and typically there's and anything else. In other words, automakers have carved for themselves the ability to use whatever data is collected by cars for whatever use possible, and to share it and sell it to third parties, which they actually do. Then there's also non-legitimate uses, right? So just a month ago, we were interviewed on a TV segment because a consumer sold their car and then they realized they could still remotely unlock it and track it and start it through the application on their phone. And the new owner had, of course, no idea. And in fact, now there's another case in the courts in San Francisco where an automaker has been named as part of a horrible case of domestic abuse because allegedly the victim tried to reach out to the automaker and say, hey, you need to restrict access to my ex-husband to the vehicle, but they didn't. And so the ex-husband kept tracking them and even physically endangered them. So again, connected cars come with a lot of features that sound really nice on the surface, and probably many of them are, but there's not been a lot of thought on how these features can be abused. And unfortunately, we start to see those things in the court system.
So if knowing what you just said, that this is still a pretty wide open area for abuse and for things. What would be the advice you could give somebody that's going out and renting cars? Not to use the call, or what would be your
so
advice?
the reality is that if you're using the phone, it's mandatory by law to use hands-free, right? And by the way, for good reasons. There's a lot of studies that say that if you use hands-free, you're a lot safer than if you don't. And so unless you're planning to not use the phone, yes, you should sync your phone, but then remember to delete it. And what we recommend is, if you are not sure how to do it, and most people are not, because, it's maybe the first time you sit in that type of car, how are you supposed to know how to delete data? There's a few things you can do, right? One is, we offer a free version of our application. So just go on the App Store or on Google Play and download the free app and you can self-serve. But ask the personnel of the rental car or the dealership, if you're test driving or if you're returning a lease, to delete it in front of you. or to give you a certificate that says that the data has been removed. Because unfortunately, what we have seen is that a lot of times businesses say that they're going to be doing it, but that actually doesn't happen. So let me give you an interesting fact, right? So for rental car companies, 99% of the cars we ever inspected in the last 4 years contain the data of one or multiple people. 99%. And then last year we sent consumers, so we didn't do the study ourselves, right? We sent consumers to 72 different dealerships, a very, very large, very sophisticated, very reputable dealerships. And we asked them to pick 2 cars of their choice, one of the same brand of the franchise, one of a different brand, and asked them test drive them and tell us if you find anything. And they did that at 86% of those dealerships. And so that's the other issue. This is a highly easy discoverable problem, right? If I was a plaintiff attorney, in the morning I would go to a dealership, test drive 2 cars, and in the afternoon you file a lawsuit, and then you do the same the next day and the next day and the next day, because this is so much easier to discover than any other issue. This is not an environmental violation where you need to find them, at night pouring the oil down the drain if they ever do, right? Those are very difficult to find out. But test driving a car and knowing that, almost 9 out of 10 times you will find data, that's a pretty easy gig.
This is fascinating and scary at the same time. Is that what on? Let's go for just a second from the rental car situation and then to trading a car in, and what are the things you could do, and then maybe you could fill in with what is the Privacy4You technology able to do to protect people in those 2 cases, the rental car and the trade-in.
So again, if you're a consumer, you could try to do it yourself, but the right thing to do is to ask people that are actually selling your car or getting your trade-in, etc., to ask them to do it, because most likely they have a higher level of expertise, even though we often see that's still not enough. What we try to do is to try to make the process simple, repeatable, and inexpensive, and most importantly, measurable, right? So if you think about anything that is compliance related, what is really important, and regulators have talked about this many times, is 1, you need to have a policy. The vast majority of dealerships do not have a policy about this. We found out that less than 1 out of 3 have a policy around personal data in cars. 2 is make sure that you have a process that works. You can, dealerships should be doing their homework. We think that based on our studies, we know that we're far more effective than any other matter. So please come to our website and check us out at Privacy4Cars. But most importantly, number 3, you need to show up with the receipts. If, God forbid, you are part of a inquiry from a regulator, you are sued by somebody, you need to be able 2 years later to say, here are all the VINs that I processed. This is exactly what we did one by one, who did it, how we did it. Here's the evidence. And so we do all of that. And we also apply a warranty on top of it. So we provide some financial reassurance to companies that if something goes wrong, there's actually some protections in place.
So are the technology that Privacy4Cars provides, is it used mostly by the individual consumers or by the dealers themselves, or both?
It's both, but it's mostly used today in very B2B environments, right? So most of our usage happens at auto auctions, where auto auctions perform the service of removing information using our platform for the benefit of their consignors. So anything from OEMs to large finance companies to small credit unions to fleet management companies, a growing number of them ask to use our process because it's measurable and again provides them with robust records and a warranty, which they really value. And again, now we're starting to go to dealerships And we already have had some early adopters, and we're just starting. We just started 2 months ago to call on dealerships. We already have a very large pipeline of people that want demos or we've done demos with, and we're in advanced discussions.
To use that technology, do you need to be able to integrate into the car through any electronic means, or can it all be done wirelessly?
No, it's very simple. So all people, there's no hardware to purchase, as long as associates have a mobile phones, and they just need to download an application. We help them through the application to walk through the menus that are specific for each specific VIN. Part of our patent is this process in which we take a VIN, we determine what systems are in there, and from there we deliver instructions specific for that one system that is in the car. And there's literally hundreds of thousands of them, so it's just impossible to keep them in your head.
Yeah.
And then there's an entire tracking mechanism to again produce these certificates and apply the warranties and produce those protections for businesses as well.
And maybe just a couple further things. I know that you're successful with patenting some of the work that you've done, and I noticed recently, I think you received 2 new patents, and I appreciate that. I have a couple patents, and I know how much work it is to actually make that happen, and so I appreciate that. But can you maybe fill in what things are you to patent around your technology that will help differentiate you or give you a stronger position in going after this problem?
Oh yeah, we're very happy because this has been a very, very long process. You know, because you have patents. This is a multi-year commitment, and it's just a lot, and it's not easy. And I love the fact that we've been recognized by the U.S. Patent Office as the people that really thought about this process. So the 2 patents cover 2 very different aspects of things that are related to privacy and protections. One is something that is currently still in test. It's the only forensically robust method, as we believe. It exploits it uses a hack that I discovered on cars 4 years ago to do a deep deletion of the data from the electronics of the systems. The other one is really the core of what we do every day. So that process covers taking essentially a VIN or any unique identifier of a device or a vehicle, break it down into systems that may contain personal information, and deliver step-by-step instructions for that system. So any method that delivers step-by-step instructions, we believe, is covered by the patent, which essentially makes us, again, the de facto solution, because we know that whenever people don't have step-by-step instruction, tell them exactly what to do, they very often leave data behind. We have done a study even at OEM facility, right? OEMs give cars to their own employees. They tend to be, 6 months old, so they're all very recent, very similar systems, and you would think, well, they make the cars, they should know how to remove the data, right? But it turns out, even in that case, they were leaving data behind in more than 30% of the cars. And we find that 30%, last stubborn 30% to be very, very consistent in the best run companies. And usually the percentage is much higher, which is why, again, having something that drops that down by 1 or 2 orders of magnitude is what we do. That's the extra protection you get through our method.
Well, this is fascinating. I have a little appreciation again because of running around and using using the hands free and trying not to leave footprints behind or anything, And so I really I can really see where what you're doing is really important. And of course, you already know that, but just from my point of view, it just seems like this is a really big problem to be solved and taken seriously.
Well,
and obviously,
what concerns us right now is that just recently, both the FTC and the CFPB have One, they have said that they really want to focus on dealerships this coming year, which is something we think is particularly concerning. The other thing that they said is that they are going to revise the Gramm-Leach-Bliley's privacy rule and safeguard rule to, and I quote, more explicitly include data breaches and privacy breaches. And so, if you combine the two, we think that this is something that, whether they use us or not, the dealerships should really be thinking about. This is a big area of exposure for next year.
Well, I'm very fascinated. I'm a techie anyway, so I've been very involved with the evolution of the the whole distributed processing systems that have come along in the last few years. And so, one of my previous lives with Hewlett Packard, I actually had a division of people working for me that work with the Ford Service Bay Diagnostic and BMW and people like that. So I have a reasonable understanding of the complexity of the technology that goes into these vehicles. And now, of course, it's moving even faster, where there's going to be more exposure because people want to be entertained in the cars, right? They're moving from just something for transportation to something to entertain people while you're in the car. So I can see where it would be a really, really big deal. And I hope that maybe we can get back with you maybe sometime mid next year. And I'd love to kind of keep this conversation going as to, okay, so Andrea, what's happened since then, and what are the points that the industry really needs to worry about? So and where's it going, and that kind of thing. So this is
I would
really
love the
important.
opportunity. I really enjoyed the time with you, Dennis. So
Any last minute thoughts, and then I'll make sure we get back to you, because I want to learn more about how where this is gonna go, and the things that you guys are doing to help fix this problem.
well, thank you. If you don't mind, if people can go to our website, it's Privacy4Cars. It's spelled privacy, number 4cars.com. There's a lot of great information, including, because you were asking earlier about the laws, and sorry, I should have answered more directly, but there's a section in there around what laws apply, and there's a giant map of the United States. You can click on any state, and you can see what are the laws that regulate data stored in cars. So hopefully that's a useful tool for anybody.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and Happy New Year. And we're going to keep this topic alive, because I think it's got a long ways to go. I think before it's really clear as to how people can protect themselves. So appreciate your time and all your input. We will talk to you again a few months down the road. Andrea, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dennis. You have a great day.